And we're live.
Hey,
Hey, look, we're
hey,
here.
Apple.
How are you, Mr. Seven?
You know, I'm well. I'm well, man. Took the week off. I was telling you earlier. It took me until today to feel like I was actually off. So I,
I
I usually am at like Monday or Tuesday. Like I'll take Friday, middle of the day, I'll leave, and then
yeah.
like Monday or Tuesday. Usually around Tuesday, I'm like, okay, I'm feeling like I'm off, but not this time. This time it has taken me until Thursday, which tells you how how deep into the matrix
Right.
I had fallen.
I had a chief that I worked for at one point that he had a rule that if you took leave or you took time off, you weren't allowed to take less than 5 days off unless you had a good reason. Because
Specifically for that reason, like there's
yeah,
a
I
point at
guess it's
which
scientifically proven that when people go on vacation, it takes like 48 to 72 hours to actually feel like you're kind of relaxed from work. Unless you're someone like me who even works when they're on vacation for some stupid reason.
Well, and I think that is me. That's actually, I mean, you know me, right? That is actually
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
And Monday and Tuesday and a little bit yesterday, I actually did a couple of things. I didn't want to do anything. I told everyone I'm out.
Right,
But there's a select couple of people who know how to get in touch with me outside of the normal ways.
right,
And on Monday,
yeah.
they're like, hey. And I was like, I told you now. Right? This doesn't count. Like, these don't count.
Right.
So, but today was actually pretty good. Been playing a lot of golf, hitting a lot of golf balls poorly,
That's good, man.
but the season's starting. So yeah, it's been nice. I've been outside, got some sun. Been
I know
great.
you've probably needed it, man. You've probably been needing it for a
I,
while, man. You work like a madman, it seems like.
well, I had not had like any more than like a day off here and there. So for like bereavement, family events, things like that, I would take a day off here and there. But I'd not had any time off since January of 2023. So
Jeez.
it was time. It was time.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's good. It's good. So how are you doing?
I'm fantastic, man. We got some storms rolling through, starting in about an hour. So hopefully, I don't lose power or anything in the middle of the podcast. That would kind of
That'd be
suck.
fine. That'd be fantastic. It looks like it's sunny in the window there.
Yeah, it's weird because that's the light reflection from the kitchen. But right now, there's not a cloud above us, and even though they're like, "Oh, you got thunderstorms coming," but I still argue also that the weathermen here in the Austin area, they just throw dice at the wall and because they don't actually know. Let's be honest. So
Yeah, we're supposed to have some storms tomorrow, but it was 85 degrees today, and
oof.
it was shorts and t-shirts, and it was
Yeah, yeah.
it's here in Alabama we have what we call fake spring. I don't know if you guys have that there.
Yeah, yeah.
Where it kind of lines up and it's like, ooh, good of spring, aren't you? And
Yeah,
you're like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
sweet spring, and it's like, ugh, get frozen. And you're like, no, seriously. And so I don't know if this is fake spring. The plants really think that it's spring because the pine trees are like, hey,
Yep.
here's just some pollen. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just,
yeah.
everything is yellow.
Oh.
So like
It's funny
allergies
here,
are going
like
nuts.
I was just telling my friend the other day, I was looking at my oak tree in the back, the little baby oak that's growing, and the leaves are starting to turn yellow. So I don't know if the tree is just completely like, I have no idea
Confused.
what time of year it is because we did get way warmer early, and then we dropped to
Yeah.
cold, and then we got
Yeah.
hot again. So I don't know. I'm hoping it don't die because it's the best looking one in like the whole street. But whatever. Anyway, what do we
Well,
have going
happen-
on, man?
It is March the 14th, 2024, the year of our Lord 2024. So we skipped one podcast and we're back on schedule today. Well, we skipped one and then we bailed on Tuesday, so we're back on. Right, we'll be doing 2 weeks from now. We'll be doing another one, hopefully on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
So we're back. We're going to be back on schedule tonight. We're going to be talking about some interesting things. It's funny because you and I go back and forth over time, and I'll say this probably every podcast it seems, but we try to keep up with some current events and we go back and forth. And so between podcasts, we're always messaging each other, texting each other, being like, "Hey, do you see this? Do you see that? Do you see this? Do you see
Right.
that?" And some of them are keepers, right? And some of them are, oh, we're going to put that on the basket in case we need it in the future because it's not like timely. And
Right.
then the vast majority of the stuff we look at, we're like, we can't talk about that. So it's an election cycle year. So lots of politics, religion, and a lot of people can't tell the difference between the two at this point.
Yeah.
So like everything we're digging through is that sort of stuff. So if anyone's out there and they're trying to go through the news, please don't. Like, just save yourself.
It's rough, man. It really is
Right?
rough. You've got to filter. I feel like way more than you should have to.
I used to be able to be like a casual.
Yeah.
Oh, let me go see. You know, I use AP News. You know, I've talked about that. I like to use actual news, not commentary. I don't like commentary. I'd rather just see like the events. So I would use AP News, right? And I'd be like, oh, let me casually look at that. I could spend like 10 minutes a day, and I could be caught up. Now it is a lot different. So we got some good subjects, though. You know, we have overcome. And today we're going to be talking about some good subjects. We're going to have our routine ones, but we've got you know, we're going to hit. Do people need to be careful about possibly getting attached to AI? And we kind of hit on this a little bit. We talked about AI in video games at the last podcast, previous podcast. Which, by the way, if you haven't checked it out, you can check it out and where you get podcasts. That's Spotify or Apple or wherever you get podcasts, you can get it. We do record these live on YouTube, so if you want to hang out with us live and chat with us and see us live, you can do that. Still waiting on our folks in Kingston, Jamaica to pop up and tell us how we can come record down there.
How amazing, seriously, though, would that be that we could...
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I think I've said that multiple times, but I think the idea of being able to travel and do something like this would be phenomenal.
Yeah. I need to figure out. I probably have enough. I'm looking around. I probably have enough mobile gear that I could make that a real thing, because it's a laptop. You know,
it's
good
really
laptop.
all you need.
But then it's like it's an a good audio interface, a couple of microphones, a couple of cables. I bet we can figure that out. I recorded bands. Of course, we had the big cases.
I would be okay with like general background noise from the goers on a beach if we could do our podcast from
the actual beach in Jamaica. Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing. I would get a microphone, an ambient mic, just to put down there to get the noise. That'd be fun.
Heck yeah. Anyway,
we're going to talk about, you know, should people be careful about getting attached to AI? Should we ditch plastic bottles and go back to glassware for all storage? So there's some interesting news articles there. The sun, as in our star, the sun, is about to shift poles, which is super interesting science, and I don't think it's don't look up level event, but we should definitely talk about it. We have a subject on store that I'm not going to bring up just simply because we don't know if we'll get to it, and it's one that'll keep. Then we're going to talk about what you've been watching, what I've been listening to, what games we've been playing, and then we'll cover with, you know, your Hapa's rules, and we go through and say, hey, where did these come from, and what's the story behind them? So I imagine we'll do that. So, was that a good intro? Did I miss anything there? It's been 2 weeks.
No, I think you covered everything, man. Yeah. I think we're good to go to continue on.
We're good to go. G to G. All right. Well, why don't we start with an article that it's not necessarily okay. This article is from the AP, right? The one that we talked back and forth about was from the AP. This isn't the only place that's talking about it, obviously. Yeah. But this article, again, less commentary because AP tends to do that. And you brought it up, but I'm going to introduce it. Because last podcast, if you go back and listen, we were talking about artificial intelligence in video games.
Yeah.
And we were talking about two things. One, what if the developers use AI to write the game, which we don't like, or I don't like, which we were saying, hey, that may not be the best use of it. But then there's the other, which is what if AI is existing in the video games and the characters, the NPCs, are having conversations that are more lifelike. And we talked about what that could look like. And so this is an unintentional, right, continuation. This article was published on February the 14th. So unintentional that this was, right, like coming up. But you brought this up. So I've read the article. You read it first and sent it to me. So where do we want to start? Because this subject can be huge. Where do we want to start here? The movie Her? Like, where are we starting?
Oh my gosh. And so many different pointers lead to this as an actual thing that I feel like as a society we have to be careful and scared of, quite frankly. This is going to go in a completely different direction initially, but so like right now there are people out there that are calling themselves like a talent agency thing, and what they're doing is asking girls if they want to be managed for OnlyFans. And what that actually means is a girl, if they wanted to make money, they would give money to this company. They would do pictures and content and whatever. It would get released over time on OnlyFans, but there is a side to OnlyFans where people can play more and quote unquote talk to the person that is with the agency, and it's not the person. So the images and stuff are there to be released over time, so it's a believable person. But right now, they're engaging with other people. So like, if you wanted to, dude or chick, doesn't matter, you can go apply for this job to be the person that chats with somebody who is thinking they're talking to this girl, and that's another thing. And what they're talking about trying to do is removing the human element completely to where you've got AI, that you wouldn't need any manpower or nothing like that. They could rake in the money because people want to pay to talk to somebody, even though they could just walk out the door, and go do it. So that's the thing that I'm scared of, because you literally have people throwing thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. They may think they're actually talking to somebody when they're talking to a bot and actually connecting to this bot or AI,
So there's been a long there's a long conversation about artificial intelligence engaging with human beings, right? So there's I'm going to try to figure out how to say this the right way. There has been a long time that, have you ever heard of the Turing test?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right, the Turing test, Turing, and that is it's I think Alan Turing invented it in his the 50s, right?
Yep.
And it was originally invented as a game, but it was a test to see if a machine could imitate a human well enough that other humans would believe that it was human, right? That was the Turing test. And so chatbots, when you use them for support and things like that, they generally don't pass the Turing test. So like when you call into support for whatever you're getting support for and it's automated, it did not pass the Turing test.
Yeah,
so there has been this trend over the past let's call it decade. I don't know exactly how long, but let's call it a decade, where you intentionally had things say, because everyone thought originally they want to talk to a person, make a machine that acts like a person. And eventually it got to the point where people responded so negatively to that you said, actually, I'm a bot, right? So it starts off by saying, hey, I'm a bot, but I'm going to help.
Yep.
And I'll connect you to a person eventually. And that actually got much better results. What we are seeing now is, I think, super fascinating. It's not actually that the bots got so good that they passed the Turing test. These people know, for the most part, that they're the people that are today, right? There's going to be boomers later on who are going to be like, oh, I was talking to Bobby down the street. And it's like, no, they're going to be fooled. Right? But the people today, they, like the guy in the article, he knows. Like, he 100% knows that that's a machine and doesn't care. That to me is like we've crossed some bridge.
Well, do you think it's because it's just become acceptable to have a bot or whatever responding to you at this point? Like, we've just given in. We've just we're not going to be able to talk to somebody, so I might as well just talk to a bot. Like,
I mean, this is where it's getting weird, right? Because how far are we away from movies like Her, right? Or where your companion is. You come home, and your home is an AI. Replication of some personality that you can pick different voices or however you want it to act.
Right.
And then that is your emotional connection, right? You're now artificial. It's the artificial emotional connection that freaks me out. That's what freaks me out.
Well, and what's really sad is I honestly think we're at a place in society nowadays where large portions of society are going to be excited and okay with having an AI as a companion versus talking to a human being. Right.
This is what I think is the bridge that we've actually crossed. It wasn't because I don't know how much you have to deal with Chat GPT generated things. You and I have talked about this. We talked about this last podcast. We talked about it before, but I see a lot of it, and you can spot it, right? Once you've seen enough of it, you're like, okay, that's.
You just recognize like the format or whatever.
Yeah, like it's very like the way the English is structured, whatever.
Sure.
It's just not human. It doesn't pass the Turing test, and so. I don't have a problem necessarily with the AI getting better, but it didn't. That's where I'm going. AI didn't
Oh, I
actually
gotcha.
get better,
Okay, yeah, fair.
right? It was just a bunch of humans said, I don't even care. I don't even need to be fooled. I'm just gonna be cool having an emotional connection to a machine instead of another human.
Yeah.
Where does that lead?
I like
Like, we're-
lattes.
I've seen Idiocracy, right?
I mean, I feel like so. We're being a lot more apocalyptic than I intended us to be right now, but
Well, yeah.
let's
Yeah.
be honest. Are we going to get to a point where there isn't upper class and lower class? There is intelligent and not intelligent. Like,
And
are we going to
artificial?
get? Yeah, because you're going to have intelligent people until AI decides that they could build their own factories and produce on their own without
Sure.
us. That
That's
can
a Black
produce
Mirror
this
episode.
stuff.
That's great.
Oh my gosh, it's so just scary, man. And honestly, I look at it like that's not going to happen in my lifetime, so that's not a problem that I have to necessarily probably deal with. But it's scary to me, the idea that this aliens may
could
land
exist.
here one day and there's not going to be a single human on the planet, right?
Yeah. No, aliens would probably wait. They're probably looking right now. I mean, I cannot
Right.
wait.
Yeah.
Till these
Yeah, they're
people
going to do it to
are-
themselves. We don't need to work.
So what's interesting? So this article, and let me tell you where I think this got me down the path here of like, wow, that's a steep cliff that we're falling off of, because this is the second podcast again in a row we talked about this.
Yeah.
Was the company part.
Yeah.
So if you go back through our library of podcasts and you listen, you will hear. I'm not anti-corporate necessarily, but you will hear me talk a lot about how companies they generally don't act in the best interest of anything other than shareholders.
For sure.
So, the only reason companies act in the best interest of their customers is because it benefits shareholders. If acting in the worst interest of customers benefits shareholders, the companies generally will do that. So,
Right.
when I look at this scenario, when you've got women who are like wanting to be managed on OnlyFans, because the exact scenario you're talking about is why even have the human at all?
Yeah.
And it started off with like, we'll get a human and we'll get some machine to pretend to be that human. But what's happening now is we're cutting the human out of the mix altogether.
Altogether, yeah.
Yeah, and a company is like, I can AI generate pictures.
Yeah.
Right? The chat was the hard part. The pictures have been
Yeah. Yeah.
And so to me, it's that people are having a romantic relationship with a company. And I think that's weird.
Oh, I never thought of it in that. That's kind of nuts when you word it that way. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So to me, I think that's where I get like,
So, and actually, that fits into like if you've seen the new Blade Runner, right? And he's got the girl, and then
Yes, he does.
it doesn't click in his head that there is literally thousands of other people with the exact same girl until later on when he sees a giant advert of her and she plays off of that, right? And so oh Jesus, that is a lot scarier when you think about it, because down the line there may be a million men and women that are in love with Apple 11.9 or whatever.
oh yeah, I'm romantically involved with Nike.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
I must divorce.
I mean,
Nike
they do make
to
some
go
comfy shoes, but you know.
I'm a big Nike guy. Like I'm gonna have to divorce Nike to go have a relationship with Adidas, who by the way reported their first loss like this in 30 years.
I was gonna
So,
say
like,
that. Yeah, that's a whole nother subject, but yeah.
A whole nother deal. But
Yeah.
it is this weirdness of, I think, being in the world that I've been in, where I've watched people be marketed to and advertised to, and seen how a small group of a small corporate group can segment human beings and put them in little blocks and very predictably say, if I apply this, they will do that.
Right.
And they will continue to test that. Like,
Right.
and it's purchasing habits right now. But that's where Facebook is made. That's why Facebook is worth what Facebook is worth, is because advertising.
Sure.
They figured that out with advertising. They've been doing that. But when you're talking about romantic involvement, that bond, the bond that you're talking about is a different thing than
Yeah.
I like wearing Nikes.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I wear Olakai shoes, right? We both we're both the only other person either one of us has ever found that was like Olakai. So,
yeah.
but like, yeah, man, like it's I don't know, it's weird when you cut out. I almost would be okay if you said, hey, we're always going to have the person, and then the person's just being imitated, right? So you sit down and have a person like, okay, we're going to do an OnlyFans thing for you. Okay, Hapa, you're going to have an OnlyFans. Right on. We got this 100 questions. We're going to ask you 100 questions.
That's not actually going to happen, by the way, for those of you listening. Just saying.
Oh, it's already happened.
Nobody wants to buy that.
I'm just stealing this. But like, you sit down, someone comes to you and is like, hey, we want to do an OnlyFans with you. You're like, right on. Okay, cool. Here is 100 questions that you need to answer. And once you're done with those, a week later, we're going to ask you 100 more.
Right. Build a database.
You do that. Right. You do that. And then they make an artificial representation of you that is at least attempting to be Hapa-like.
Sure. Yeah.
That is a different thing to me. And even that's kind of creepy, right? Because that's like,
well,
that's kind of...
That's the
people
end,
would be
that's
engaging
the end that
and they'd
I'm
be like,
going.
oh, I'm engaging with Hapa, and they're not.
Right.
That's like,
but that's the
easy.
point I'm getting at, is that to me is just as scary, because at some point someone's going to be like, well, we're just going to make people up. We don't need you anymore. We don't need people anymore. Right.
Absolutely.
And I've kind of, I've thinking about this over the last couple weeks or whatever. I've thought about the fact that it's like we set ourselves up for this already. Because back in the day, getting divorced or getting in a relationship and breaking up and going and finding somebody else and getting a relationship, breaking up and doing that was not a thing. Like, you literally meet a girl in class, in high school or whatever, you know, Betty was going to wait for you while you went off and fought the war, and you came back 6 years later and they've been married for 65 years. Like, that's, I mean, and that's where I think, like, the way the people in general in society look at relationships as you can come and go, it doesn't matter. We're already setting ourselves up for that. Like, we already are like, well, I don't like the way that she wears her hair on the left side of her head. Break up with her, go find someone else. Like, there's no connection there. You're losing that connection. Yeah,
that's fair. So what you're saying there is relationships have become far more transactional anyway.
Yeah, for 100%. Yeah, for sure.
And
even quote unquote unbreakable relationships, right? Like,
even relationships that were traditionally unbreakable.
Yeah.
And then this is actually the ultimate transactional relationship. It's just money for emotional connection.
Yeah, exactly. Or you're bored and you're lonely, and you just have someone to fill that void a little bit, which is at some point that little bit online interaction or whatever is going to be a dopamine hit that's sufficient for whoever on the other end. Like, I don't need to hug nobody or even see them ever in person.
Oh man,
the world's gonna end. I'm just saying.
This is how we all go away.
God.
Do
you see
really
what I'm
is.
Saying? Like, I want.
Oh yeah,
to be positive,
absolutely. Well, I mean, how can you be, right? So let's take let's do this. You and I try. Let's try and let's turn it into what is the most positive thing about this.
Look out, everybody! Who's getting serious.
Right? Like, what good? What actual good would this do?
Yeah, I suppose if you go into the deepest, darkest place where someone might honestly have been trying forever to be in a relationship, and for whatever reason they have something where they're just not able to meet that equalizer in their life, their partner, whatever the case may be. This 100% I think can fill that gap, but then it becomes a moral question of whether it should be allowed to do that.
Yes.
Right?
I agree. So this is why I struggle. Okay. So best possible scenario. Someone is incredibly lonely and does not have the capacity, means, opportunity, something outside of their control to go and create emotional, romantic connections with other human beings. Right. So let's say that's let's call that innocent.
Yeah. And
this type of relationship would offer them a path forward that is harmless, right? Because that's how a lot of really scary stories start.
Yeah.
right? Of that this person was frustrated, couldn't meet people, whatever, and then this is how it became a Netflix documentary.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like that's like the next step. So let's say that, okay, these companies are like, hey, altruistically, we're trying to help these people. Then me, where I'm borderlining on jaded for this is, are you company X telling me that you're not going to go try to make your own market?
Right.
You're not going to try to make more people, find more people? Because Facebook did that with experimentation with the social media feeds, right? Making people more depressed, making people dark or whatever. And it worked.
And you're going to get to a point where, okay, you got 370 million people in the United States. Oh, look, Apple has figured out 120 million of them are single and unable to find somebody. Here's a product. But you have, in order to get this dopamine and this connection, you have to pay $9.99 a month. And everyone gets so detached that you have to subscribe.
That's a lot cheaper than my wife.
Well,
sorry.
Well,
$9.99 a month. Hang on,
You're not wrong though. You're not wrong.
Hang on, I didn't know it was that cheap.
I might need to I may have to renegotiate. I don't know. Like,
what am I doing this whole time? I'm in. Where is Singularity? Let's go. Plug me in.
And that's, I think that connects back to like the morality, the moral question really is like, because it's gonna be a thing. It already is, like you said, like because Facebook wasn't very popular when you're saying chipper, upper, happy stuff all the time. So we have to introduce depressing, sad things to play off your depression, and we're gonna get you in there.
You and I have talked about this with social media. We remember when Twitter was a timeline feed of people you were connected to and nothing more.
And that's
Facebook was that too, right? That was originally what Facebook was. And it actually, both of those companies got pretty big doing that, but they discovered, but if we create drama, even manufactured drama, even fake drama between people, what if we create fake drama between people? They
pay attention more. Yes, exactly.
Right. Now we actually have bots creating drama with bots, and have a lot of other people just cheering on the sides, being like, I'm with that bot. Gosh. And they don't realize it's bots.
Yeah.
So we already know people respond really addictively and really, really aggressively to negative, and they don't really care about positive, right? So the hits that they're getting from supporting something negative is way better than whatever hit they're, the kitten pictures, the puppy pictures, like, which is what I used to post all the time. Like, here's a picture of a puppy. It's not mine, but it's a picture of a puppy. I hope your day is better.
Right. God, yeah, that's
so, like,
yeah, for sure. Okay, so that's
it's gonna be interesting, man. This one is one I think we should come back to. I think you and I. So this is 2 podcasts in a row.
Yeah.
I think we should keep an eye on this particular subject because I am all in curious.
Well, because I have a whole bunch more questions that are just popping in my head thinking about this whole thing. Like, that's.
I'm not trying to move us on, by the way. I'm not trying to move us on, so we can keep talking about
it. Well,
okay,
well, let me ask then, because you're, not to put your business out there, but your kids are not normal kids, right? So.
Yeah.
And I know that you talk to your kids about social media and how they interact, and they're already, in terms of intelligence, probably a good decade ahead of their peers in the public school system. No offense to anybody that has kids in the public school system, but let's be honest. We all know and then, by the way, let me backtrack a bit with that statement. If you don't know, things in institutions are set up to basically have levels of normalcy, right? It's easier to control and baseline huge groups of people in an institution. So when you take people out of the institution, they're already gonna, because the human brain is far, far, far more better at excelling and growing and gathering information when it's not set with limits. And that's what I was getting at. If you're in a public school system, it's not necessarily the fault of the students. It's the system's just built that way.
Sure.
But what I was getting at is the difference with how your kids probably will handle something like this is going to be significantly different than, say, 100 high schoolers that are currently a senior at whatever high school, right? Because
Yep.
I feel like that the institutions are also kind of rolling this in their system. Like they're always talking about AI and talking about this, talking about technology and stuff like that, even when trying to just do papers for an assignment, right? right? Like just the
Sure,
general
sure.
conversations. So
I was the chair of a committee for a conference that Alexis Ohanian was part of, and we were hanging out after, and he said something to me that changed the course of kind of how I parented. So Alexis Ohanian, the founder of Reddit, and he said to me, and it wasn't just me, there were 5 or 6 of us. He said,
sure.
"Well, you'll notice my kids, Zuck's kids, they don't use social media."
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, hang on." And he said, "It's too addictive, and it makes you feel too bad about yourself." So, like, from a parenting situation, I took that moment and was like, and that's a very fortunate kind of moment in my world.
Sure.
And this was well before social media became like
What it is.
the Trojan horse that it kind of is now. And what I have seen now, so to your point, my kids and their friends, the way they interact with social media is very different. And originally my kids were like, "Hey, that's not cool. I want to interact just the way the other kids want to," because kids actually desire to be affected, right? They want to be part of the group. They want to be like their friends. And I was talking to my daughter earlier this week, and she was like, I get it, right? They act a certain, they do, like anyone it's not everyone, but anyone who's kind of sold out, addicted to these things, they act different. And she was actually talking about TikTok, which once again, back during the Trump administration, Donald Trump was making a big deal about TikTok, trying to broker an internal a sale of TikTok to a United States-based company, because there was a fear then during the Trump administration that TikTok was being weaponized by the Chinese government. Well, here's the thing: the Trump and Biden administration agreed on something.
That's crazy.
Crazy. Right, and if people aren't taking, and they're not, because we're not talking about that, because we'd rather talk about what yanks us apart, right?
Yeah.
But if people would take a minute and realize that the Trump administration and Biden administration agreed on this,
speaks volumes to what we're worried about. Yeah,
right.
Volumes.
And so TikTok being kind of the lead candidate who said, "Oh, we do know." I mean, I've told you before, I believe social media is nicotine 2.0. I believe it's tobacco 2.0. I believe that companies know it's bad for people. They're getting away with it. They know they're getting away with it. They're funding and then hiding the studies that show just how bad it is for human beings.
Right.
And they're just making their money on it, right? And that's what the tobacco companies did. And I feel like the same thing's happening with social media. And so when you start adding in the ability, so right now what happens on social media, and let me get back, I get to a point eventually. Okay. So on social media, here's what creates the issue. It's addictive.
Yep.
And it shows a life you can't have that doesn't actually exist.
Yep.
Right? So that's what it does today. And everyone's chasing around that social media clout, and they're making their trying to make their perfect pictures and be influencers and whatever. So it creates this perfect ideal that doesn't exist.
Right.
AI will make that worse, and is making it worse today, and it will do the same thing to romance. So I would tell you, if someone is romantically involved with AI, they will never be satisfied by you.
Ever. Yep.
They will not learn the skills it takes to have a deep relationship, because the AI will be subservient.
And that's where, I mean, I guess I'm getting in the sci-fi realm here, because you're gonna blink, and the entire planet is plugged into whatever AI as a relationship, and we're just not procreating, and eventually there's the bottleneck to human race, right? Like, yeah, I don't know, man.
Well, they're talking about population declines already.
It's been a huge worry for a lot of countries for like 10 years now, right?
Absolutely. This is a fascinating subject. You know, China went through the situation where they limited how many kids each family could have, that led to a specific gender being overrepresented in the population. So they're having this back and forth. So you get a lot of things going on in society right now, because we're at such scale, right? Because there's so many people on the planet that you're talking about a lot of things, AI being just one of them. And I think this is you and I should keep talking about this. I'm going to move us on now, simply because we got pretty dark, and the segue is actually darker.
We're going to a whole other different topic here, right? So for sure.
And the segue we're moving into, right? Like, which is should we ditch plastic bottles and go back to glassware for all storage? So look, Surface. I'm going to let you talk about this one.
Yeah.
But on the surface, I have I remember when stuff was in glass, and I remember when we swapped to plastic. Seems innocuous. It's just a container.
Yep.
That's not the case.
Yep.
And so you posted this article. You actually posted two, right? And so
Yep.
I looked at both of them. So run us through these articles real quick, and let's have a conversation about if could glass replace plastic, right? Is glass the new plastic?
Right. So, let's start this conversation with the understanding that the knowledge based around the worry about plastic containers being harmful to humans is not something new. This is not a conversation that is brand new. There was studies done like 20 years ago that suggested that plastic containers were actually very harmful for humans in general when food or water were stored in them. And I don't know what the deal was, why we saw that. We're like, whatever, like where the decision making processes occurred there. But I know there were some changes to the formula of the plastic containers, which was a huge help. A BHP, I think, is don't ask what BHP stands for. I just know it was an additive in plastic that actually was known to be carcinogenic when food and stuff sat in it for a little while. Well, it turns out recently they've found that bottles of water that are in plastic containers, which I would guess that like 99% of bottled water is in plastic containers today, over time, microplastics leach into the water, and then you're consuming those microplastics when you drink the water, and then your body can't convert or use that plastic, so it does what it always does when there's something that it doesn't know how to convert to energy. It stores it as fat. So these microplastics are getting into the bloodstream. Some cases they're breaking the brain-blood barriers. A lot of cases they're getting into tissues. They think they're starting to cause a lot of cancers, a lot of lymphoma in general, because that's where your blood interacts the most, is all your lymph nodes. Just on and on and on and on. And the studies are like, they're not like one or two little places that have done the study. I mean, there's some big companies and big universities that have done these studies and verified that this is actually a thing. And the problem, I think, now is companies have gotten so used to the money they're saving by using plastic containers that I don't know that we're ever going to get back to glass, even though realistically, glass is like the best container vessel for anything that you're going to be eating, drinking, whatever the case may be, right? And there's places in Europe, I know for a fact, where you can take your glass bottles back. Like there's water companies that if you take your glass bottles back, they reuse them and they'll refill them, and you just pick up a crate of water and you go and you bring the bottles back, and so it's not like it's new technology. I remember when I was younger, we used to get milk. We had a milk company, and we took the glass jugs to them in the little carrier, and you gave them the carrier. They'd, what do you want? Whole milk, 2%, whatever. They'd fill it, cap it, give it back to you after with sterilized bottles. Like, that was a normal thing. But here we are now, because plastic bottles, when you're... Okay, so let's look at... FEMA is a perfect example, right? Hurricane comes through. They need water. They need water to drink, do everything, right? Everyone needs water.
Yeah, they need clean water. Yep.
Right. So what does FEMA do? They show up with truckloads of bottled water. They distribute all these bottled water. What a lot of people don't realize is these bottles of water have been sitting in a warehouse for God knows how long. Even if it's past the date on the bottom, the average person who needs water is going to say water and open it and drink it, right? So if
you've never needed water, it's a different thing. Water is a good example, right? The plastics, they're not just present in water; they're present in anything, right? So if you're talking about Mountain Dew, it's there too, right? Like,
Well, a lot of aluminum cans now are coated in plastic. Like, people don't realize soda cans have plastic on them. So
plastic's everywhere, right? It became
everywhere.
But I mean, when you're talking about water, if you've never had we take for granted our access to water here in the United States and in most of the world. Anyone who's listening to a podcast likely takes for granted their access to water.
Right.
If you ever have a moment where you need water, because you just said something interesting, you need water.
Yeah.
The ramifications of that water being polluted with plastics are irrelevant to you at that time.
At that time, yep.
at that time. And FEMA is a good example because when we had the tornadoes kind of tear through Alabama years back, it was here, it was Joplin, right? There was a series of tornadoes. For anyone unfamiliar, I think it was 2015, but tornadoes kind of went across the state and it tore up everything. Lots of people died. In fact, my home was damaged. It tore down neighborhoods right next to us. Like, it was a real thing. And the first thing people did was throw crates of water in the back of trucks and take it to people who needed it.
Yep.
And every bit of that water was in plastic bottles. Every single ounce of it was in plastic bottles. And I'm curious now, and I haven't done enough research to know the reasons. I can think of several reasons you would choose plastics over glass as a company.
Yeah.
Meaning, I'm a company, I'm going to choose it. There's probably weight. The plastic shipping, right? Everything goes back to weight at some point. So like shipping's cheaper, whatever.
Just the production of a plastic bottle is 10 times faster and cheaper.
Is it quicker and easier?
Way faster and easier, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I can see why companies would, but I can't think of a single reason as a consumer I would prefer plastic.
No, I was thinking about that the other day. I was actually, when I first read this article, I was like, if they sold water in glass, I probably would buy it. And they do, but they're like the specialty waters that's like, $15 a bottle or whatever, know.
Right.
But if it was like, the brand that I get bottled water from, if they did like legitimate 16-ounce glass bottles of water, I'd definitely do that, right? And a lot of people don't realize, so this is the other side of it too, is that I'm willing to believe the majority of society also doesn't realize that plastic in general is actually the biggest problem for pollutants on the planet, hands down.
Right.
Hands down.
Right. As a planet, I know our planet would prefer that we don't use plastic.
100%, yeah. And so a lot of people don't think, I put my plastic bottles in recycling, and they're turns out only about 5% of all plastics actually gets recycled. So, I would charge everyone out there, if you pay to a trash company to do recycled and trash pickup, ask them the locations that their two separate bins of trash go to. And I'm willing to believe that 99% of you out there, they go to the exact same location. And a lot of times...
So you're saying you got a recycling bin, but you throw it in there, and that never makes it to a recycling center?
They've got two trucks that go to the exact same place.
Yeah.
A lot of those companies don't do that. A lot of those companies don't actually recycle.
That's a shame and a sham.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I used to work across the street from a recycling center, and not a lot of people in this state care about the planet. And to a point, there's a bravado with it at times. And so that's not a convincing argument to a lot of folks around here. But there was a recycling center across the street. And so this recycling center would take anything you'd bring them. And they didn't pay you for it. And it was always fascinating to me to see how many people were willing to bring their glass and plastics and whatever to this recycling center. And there was always traffic, right? There was always people coming and going.
Yeah.
So there's enough people out there, even in a place like this, I would imagine, where there's a lot of people just are like, there's a certain amount of bravado tied up in not caring about the planet, not caring about certain things. Even here, I will tell you, there are enough people who would prefer to have glass, recycling, whatever, that prefer to have that it would be a worthwhile endeavor for someone to provide it.
Yeah,
even
so
here,
I don't know.
And if here, anywhere, right? That's my.
So
assumption.
I wonder then what the reasoning? Maybe the startup cost to get that going isn't enough for any company to want to have to deal with it.
But I mean, we did it. I need to look into this. I think we should look into this some more. But we did it.
Yeah.
Right? And like you were talking about the milk bottles, it used to be Coca-Cola bottles were always glass.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You could still get some in glass bottles.
Yeah.
So we did it. Some people do it, and then we make choices not to. Why are we making choices not to? I don't know. I need good reasons why. Because as a consumer, there's no time I would just say prefer. I'd prefer plastic. Right? Yeah, you actually go to the grocery store, right? Paper or plastic?
Yeah.
Right? Like, So glass, I don't know. That's an interesting one to me. I need to find out more about why glass is not used more often, and what are the barriers to using it? Is it just a perceived convenience? Do you have product loss, right? Because it shatters. It's not as resilient as plastic.
Yeah, but surely plastic bottles are getting squished and popping and are more resilient stacking wise than glass. I mean,
Especially
yeah, I don't. Again, I'm not talking from any.
Thin?
Yeah, and I'm not talking from any point of actual intelligence on the subject at all. But I mean, I do know that the United States, we actually ship most of our plastic to Malaysia, to the Philippines, to other places. And a lot of that plastic, honestly, literally just gets dumped into the ground. So it's like, and that's what I'm worried about is, have we just as a society gotten so unconscious about, like, we don't even care. Like, nobody cares. I just need bottles of water. That's what I need to go grab.
Right.
2-3 cases, bottles of water. Don't care they're plastic. Don't care that all that plastic's going to be in the ground in a few weeks or whatever the case may be. Is that where we're at as a society? I mean, come on, man.
I mean, with the research that you were talking about, and I'm reading, I was going over here to get numbers, and here's what the research says. It was research published Monday in the proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences found that a liter of water in a plastic bottle contained an average of about 240,000 detectable fragments, 10 to 100 times more than previous estimates. So, for anyone that needs it, a liter is a little bit more than 32 ounces.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I will say about that is, you started this off by saying it's worse than we thought it was, and we knew it was bad.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the point, is we've known this was bad for some time.
Yes, yeah.
And now you've got research showing, it's 10 to 100 times worse than we thought it was. What is it going to take for people to be like, hey, how about I just don't buy stuff? I mean, I remember when bottled water wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Right.
But we had to start getting bottled water because our water supply is toxic, right? Like, so.
Right. But then the water you're buying is toxic. What
Exactly.
Do we do?
Yeah.
Everybody go get. We're not sponsored. We are in no way affiliated with this company. However, everyone just go get a Brita filter, please. So,
I mean, I'm at a point. I was thinking about that today. It was like, if the bovine feces hit the reciprocating oscillator, and I had to go ahead and figure out my own water supply, like a well.
Yeah.
I have no idea how to even start looking for water from the ground.
A funny story? Here's a funny story. I worked with a guy, and I'll tell you his first name, simply because it's so common. I worked with a guy named Jim.
Okay.
And Jim was a contractor. I love Jim. Jim's a smart dude. A little bit off kilter at times, but brilliant dude. Love this guy. Loved working with this guy. So one day I'm walking by Jim's desk, and I hear a clinking. And I look into his little cubicle there, and under his desk, there's stacks of metal water bottles. And when I had walked by, he had turned and he had hit them with his feet. So that's the clinking area. Metal water bottles.
Oh, interesting.
And I was like, and I'm talking about like there were 30. Okay.
What?
Yeah. And I was like, not like one or two, like 30. And they were stacked. And I was like, Jim.
Okay, yeah.
You thirsty? That's the only thing to say. And he goes, oh, that's my water. And I said, I hoped it was water, but now I have to ask, what is going on? He goes, I have a well on my property, and it's the only water that I trust. So this guy had water, had a well on his property. He drew water from this well, and he put it, and he purified it in whatever way he did. Right, he did purify, didn't take it, but purified it, and he brought it in bottles. And when he made his coffee, every morning, he used this. When he made his whatevers,
wow,
this is what he used. And I will tell you, I tasted it. That's the best tasting water.
Yeah.
Water has a flavor. There's actually a company here, and I was working with them on some things, and it was a guy who invented water purification systems. He worked on water purification systems. He invented something which purified water and then imitated water from all over the world. And so it could add, it's not like flavored water, like people think of flavored water with all the sugar and all the flavors.
Yeah, yeah.
No. He took the actual minerals and would have them in pods, kind of like K-cups. And so
That's
you could be like,
crazy.
yeah, you'd be like, I want water that tastes like the water from actual, Paris. Because they've got a great
Rome
water
or
system.
whatever, yeah.
Right. And he'd be like, cool, we've evaluated that water. Here's what's in that water. So the first thing he would do is take your water and get it down to just literally just like nothing.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nasty. It's not actually that good.
Yeah,
I've tasted
yeah.
that too, and it was like, ugh. And then he would add in these minerals, and he's like, this is what water tastes like in Paris. This is what water tastes like. And so anywhere in the world, if he could get a sample of the water, he could evaluate the minerals. And so this well water has more in it naturally. Now, whether it's good or bad, remains to be seen, but it ain't plastic.
Sure. Yeah, it's not a plastic bottle though. I mean, you're adding
plastic
minerals.
is
How,
like coating my
how
arteries
bad
with like
could
a
that be? Right?
saran
Yeah.
wrap.
Well, and that's the point where we're at, honestly, because and we've talked about this in the past. All of the chemical reproduction of whatever flavor, all of the pesticides, and we talked about that in the past. How we think that a lot of these have created health issues for people. They've are the cause of cancers and lymphomas and whatever the case may be. But it's like literally everything nowadays is the cause of that, right? The plastic containers, the pesticides, the food we eat, like everything we are freaking doing is causing these cancers. And it's like
The generation that invented consumerism
oh my gosh.
and then figured out how to package it and preserve it has killed us.
Because I've had well water. I've actually had regular well water,
Oh, yeah.
and it does. It is a much better tasting. Like, I would drink it all day. It tastes wonderful,
Yeah,
It's like Brando. It literally does have everything that you need.
got what plants crave. There was a natural spring not too far from where I grew up, and it was a cold spring. So my dad had told me about it, and I wandered way back into the woods and found this thing. And so my friends and we would go back there, and it would actually the spring would come up out of the ground there, and it was so cold. And so we would go and we would get we'd go to the market and we'd save up our money and we'd get like a watermelon. And we would go and we would take the watermelon and we would sit it in this spring.
Hell yeah.
And we would go swimming and we would do whatever. And when you would get that watermelon, it would be frosty cold. It was so good. But the water from that spring, which I probably would not go drink it now. But then, right, I'm sure someone has figured out how to plug pollution right into the source.
Directly into it, yes.
Yeah. But at the time, it has a different feel to it, right? So to me, if we could get away from if I could get bottled water that was really good water, not repackaged, water from Atlanta, Georgia, like the Georgia, the local Atlanta waterworks, right? Not that water, actual good water from a spring in a mountain that was good water in a glass bottle.
Hands
I'd
down.
buy it. Yeah. I like water.
Yeah, and it's like, and that's the thing too, is because it's not just the water either, because it's everything we store everything in. If it's whatever it is, if it's plastic, you're getting that. You're literally getting microdosed, folks. Like you're getting microdosed with
the bad stuff.
With bad stuff, not good stuff, not
it's
happy
a bad
stuff.
Microdose.
Yeah,
it's the bad microdose.
yeah.
I will say, all right. So to put a kind of a bow on this conversation, water, I would encourage people to go get a filter. Right, like Brita, if you want to hit us up, I'm certain Hapa we'll find a business arrangement that works for everyone.
Right.
But if you go, they have if you've not seen them and people aren't aware, even Brita is just who we use, but they have these containers, and you take and you put tap water into it, and it filters the water, the tap water, and that's all we use. So we use it for our ice, we use it for everything, and I will tell you that it does make a difference. And is it perfect? Probably not, but it's better than what you're getting elsewhere.
Yeah. There is a product out there that I saw over the last few months. It's called the Water Machine. It's literally the Water Machine. And it's a glass vessel. Yeah, it's a glass vessel. It has a vessel up top and a vessel down below, and there's filters in between. And you literally just pour your tap water into the top, and it filters through these two filters down into the bottom. And supposedly it will even filter like fluoride and stuff that is put into your water by the city. The problem is it's $300 just for the machine. I haven't even looked at the filters itself. So the filters are $33 for a 2-pack of filters. It is 2 filters to get it done. I don't know how long you get water from.
Okay.
Yeah, that I don't know, but supposedly when it filters, it'll filter everything you don't need out of it. And to be honest with you, that if you couple that with I know it's going to sound really crazy, but the Viking sea salt, the pink Viking sea salt, which is what you actually is healthy for your body. Supposedly, like that's the best water that you could drink, I guess. But
yeah, that's kind of the Tyler, the guy that I told you about. He was the inventor, or whatever. It was really interesting to go on a water tasting journey. I had never done such, and he was doing a pitch to investors, and I was part of that crew, and got to go through and taste like 25 different varieties of water, and he would explain it does have salt, right? It has minerals and things like that. And he's like, this is actually really, really, really good for you, but it's also very good flavor, right? So fascinating stuff. In fact, I just texted the guy that introduced us. I'm going to see if I can find more information about his project. If it does, I'll give it to you, and we can talk about what that looks like. But I'd love for you to try that out when you come to town. So going from that, not a great segue here, but there's an article you posted that we're going to. Well, actually, you know what? Let's put a bow on this. Stay tuned, everybody. If I get information about this product and it is something people can buy, I will post it so that people can go take a look at it, right? If you care about your water, you care about the health of the planet, plastics are not the way. Yeah. And I did not come up with a reason that we as consumers would prefer plastic to, say, glass. There may be other options, but we prefer glass. So if you can help us think, post on the YouTube video, tweet us, whatever, let us know what you think. But as far as I'm concerned, dude, I would take glass every day.
Hands down.
That's where I would be.
Hands down. I just, at this point for me, it's just a matter of, nobody sells bottled water in glass. Unless it's some special, like I said, some special brand that's like literally $20 a bottle or some crap, To me, there's no reason to not use it, except for nobody does it. So, anyway.
Nobody does it. Yep. Okay. Well, Hapa, the sun's getting active.
It is. It's been active.
So the sun and sunspots. We've seen a lot of activity from the sun. You and I have talked about it here and there.
Yeah.
A lot of solar flares, a lot of radio disruption here on Earth as a result of the solar flares. Luckily, engineers are pretty good at what they do, and we haven't had total, outages that have been devastating. But that has absolutely been a possibility because there is so much activity on the sun in the form of solar flares. So, Hapa, why is that? What is happening on the sun? What's about to happen on the sun?
So, what prompted this article was because of our last podcast. We talked about the solar flares that we were seeing and stuff like that, and I was kind of curious to delve into like what causes these, because I just assumed that it was just the matter burning off, and then sometimes it burns so much that it would just eject. And that's not actually the case, turns out. So the sun has an 18 to 14 year cycle. I don't know if you read that or not in the article, but where this was kind of a clickbait title, obviously. The world's gonna end, don't look up. But 8 to 14 year cycle, the poles, the magnetic poles in the sun actually flip. They aren't 100% positive why it does it, but it does it every 8 to 14 years. And the way they know it's nearing its shifting time, or whatever you want to call it, is the jump in activity of solar flares. Because as this is getting ready to happen, the solar flare ejections that happen from the sun increase. And then the literally will flip. The magnetic, poles on it will flip, and they'll actually see a drastic drop in solar flare activity for a little while, and it goes through another 8 to 14 year cycle like that. So that's what actually drove all this. Basically, what they're saying is, sometime in the near future, the sun's solar solar. I keep getting wrapped around that. The sun's magnetic poles are going to shift, and you're going to see a significant drop in solar flare activity, which is great because, I mean, I don't really notice it. I haven't really noticed it for the last, couple of months. They said it was the height of the solar activity and supposedly will lose connectivity and all that, but I really haven't noticed. So I don't know if that was like, it's different where you might be on the planet, but yeah, essentially that's what's going to happen. It's kind of cool. So it's nerdy science level stuff, honestly.
It is. It is nerdy science level stuff, but it's also really, we know so little, right? That the little bits of information we do have and the things we do know, to me, I find fascinating. And when you're talking about the sun or any planetary bodies or anything outside of Earth, the amount of stuff we know is so small. And you talk about magnetic pole shifting, right? The Earth does the same thing, and that's going to be fascinating. Because I'm really curious, right? If the magnetic poles shift on Earth, is my compass going to point the other direction, right? Like, what's going to happen? And you start having all these thoughts, and then the sun is like, oh, solar flares really get excited. And I would say that it happens every 8 to 14 years, but every 8 to 14 years, we have more things that could be disrupted.
Yeah.
By this stuff, right? So 100 years ago, who cared? Well, 150 years ago, who cared? 200 years ago, who cared? It was just an interesting observation that the sun was doing something weird. Yeah. But now we have a lot of equipment that basically it could serve as an EMP.
Literal, yeah.
For
destroy satellites or whatever.
100%. Just make more space junk. So it's going to be something that we should follow. They are saying that it's going to be between January and October of this year. So there's that should occur, and I imagine once that does, we will be front and center, right? We will have our eyes on the news, and we'll be trying to avoid reading election coverage, I'm certain, between here and October.
I'm sure.
And somewhere in the deluge of negativity, which we call politics these days, we'll find the sun has swapped poles, and we will talk about it on the podcast. And it will give us something to talk about that's not this other stuff.
To me, it's one of the things that really blows me away is that they know all this stuff, or that somebody has been documenting all this stuff, or they know, everything about this. Obviously, people way smarter than Seven and I, but the fact that they can narrow it down, because when you think about time in a galactic sense, January to October is like a millionth of a blink of an eye, right?
Yeah, microseconds.
Yeah, and somehow we're able to tell that this is when, I don't know how they know, you know what I mean? But so it's supposed to be happening. A lot of people don't realize that either. Like, I like that you mentioned that the planets do that. They know for a fact that this planet Earth has shifted poles several times. There is evidence that there's poles, like case in point, the Bermuda Triangle and the I think the Dragon's Triangle, I think is what they call it. I can't remember, in Asia, are very similar in terms of polar readings to have possibly been magnetic poles at some point. And I know I've read before where they think that the moon was made from us, like a meteor hit us and blew off a piece of the Earth, and that's what created the moon, which definitely would have shifted poles. I mean, some of that stuff is probably pretty sci-fi when you think about it, but the fact that they know all that too is kind of crazy to me, that these things happen over time or whatever.
Well, this is, you'll hear us on this podcast a lot. So you've talked about this. So this is not unknown stuff. You served in the United States military.
Yeah.
You're in the Navy. And one of the things the United States does really well is spend money on military.
Yeah.
Right? And for the most part, I mean, you tell me, I'm no expert, right? But I come from a military family, but I was not in the military. For the most part, the things we spend money on the military are to destroy something else.
Yeah.
That is the vast majority. Now, there is an entire other subset of spending, and you and I do a lot of work to focus on this other spending when society gets together. We talk about this in podcasts all the time, and space seems to be a place where we can have a talk about it, right? Because when society gets together and says, let's spend our money, our time, our resources, and our brain power on something that's not killing each other,
right,
we can do and learn really amazing things. And I'm really just happy that there are people out there paid, right? Because they have to eat.
For sure.
They're probably not paid anywhere near enough, but
Right.
they're like, we have figured out that every 8 to 14 years or whatever, the sun's magnetic poles shift. Someone said that at some point, and someone else was like, because this is how science works. Well, let me see your research. I'm going to put that in front of 150 people
Yeah.
who know more about that than anybody else on Earth, and we're going to get, if any of them can prove it wrong, it's not right. And then they said, you know what? No, they got peer reviewed, and we actually believe the sun does change magnetic poles. And then they moved on to say, okay, what does that even mean for us? Right?
Yeah.
This is the beauty of science, right? You're just less wrong every day. You don't have this idea of I'm right about, you shouldn't have this idea I'm right about something, right? You're like, I'm just exploring and I'm less wrong. So I love these kinds of articles. I love knowing this sort of stuff. I'm really curious about what happens when Earth shifts its magnetic poles. And now that you mentioned the Bermuda Triangle, I had no idea, because I'll be honest, as a kid, I thought the Bermuda Triangle was going to be a much bigger part of my adult life than it turned out to be.
Right. Well, so to be clear, the Earth leans. We have a lean to the Earth. 23.5 degrees off of actual vertical is, and that moves. That leaning is increasing. I can't remember what the numbers are, but it is increasing. And
okay, so wait, so we've got a lean.
So if you go north-south, straight up and down,
it's,
obviously if you're listening, you're not watching, you don't know.
shifting?
We are slowly falling over, and it's
anyone who's listening to the podcast, we are right now holding our hands up,
and none of you can actually see it. No, but so the idea is, and I've because I'm a nerd, I've done a lot of reading on this subject, and they don't 100% know the reasoning behind why the poles shift. I've seen speculations. It's like, oh, the ice cap on one or the other pole gets just so large it overpowers the other and it flips the planet, and like, I don't know what the reasoning behind it is, but we're at 23.5 degrees lean, and that's why there's parts of the planet that never see the sun, or they through certain parts of the year never see the sun until we get on the other side where the planet's leaning the other direction, and it's supposedly increasing, so at some point it's going to get so far over that the planet actually will flip. It will flip. And I remember reading some article where they talked about that. What if the poles shifted? And it's pretty freaking scary. Like, it's what was that? What was that disaster movie with John Cusack in it? Was it 2012? Was that the name of the movie? The
John
disaster
Cusack?
movie?
Well, I gotta.
He played like a limo driver.
It's okay. I'm a limo driver. 2012. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Good job.
Like the devastation is supposed to be on that level. Like, literally, the continents will shift their locations in like a 24-hour period, and like craziness.
My goodness.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that I would like to see, but I don't really want to see. Like,
yeah, that sounds
horrifying.
like I would lose sleep over it.
Yeah. If you really want to go down the nerd hole, there's some people that think that's why Atlantis is gone, because the pole shifted and it got buried underwater and blah, blah, blah.
I mean, yes. Look, I was watching. You get these moods where you watch late nights.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff, and it's like it's a documentary, but it really is.
Yeah.
To conspiracy stuff. And I was watching Ancient Civilizations with this guy.
Oh, yeah. I love that show.
Oh my God, this guy's like, I'm not an archaeologist, and all the archaeologists is like, hell no, you're not an archaeologist. Everyone's pissed at him all the time. So, like, he's like, I said I wasn't an archaeologist. They said, but you're not an archaeologist. It's like this whole argument, and he is just up on top of some mountain in the middle of nowhere, being like, how old are these ruins? Because someone built those, and they're like, 11 billion. And he said, but you told me people was only around like 35 minutes ago.
Exactly, yeah.
And they're like, you're no archaeologist. It's like this weird cycle. And so I was watching this, and it was really interesting because he was talking about the propensity for societies lost. Right? Our record keeping has not always been global. And so the propensity for lost societies is actually very high. We've lost a ton of societies, right? It's just like, how big were they when we lost them is the only question we're asking now. So as long as humans have existed and built societies, we have lost societies without ever knowing it. Right, that has absolutely occurred. There are still uncontacted tribes on this planet today.
Yeah.
And if they disappeared, we know nothing about how their social systems worked, right? So that absolutely is true. And so when you throw in something like, the planet could just flip over here and there. I completely want to start like looking into. That's almost a tinfoil hat I want to wear,
Well, there goes your weekend. You're welcome.
Yeah, I don't own a lot of tinfoil hats, but I'm going to go buy that one. That's the tinfoil hat I need to buy because nobody's talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I there's been a lot of nerdy stuff like that I've read, so I could go on for a very, very long time if I wanted to about all that stuff. Let's be honest.
A podcast on nothing but half those tinfoil hats, and you just have to change them over and over again.
Oh my gosh. I remember there was a time where I was like I'm telling you, I was trying to find shows and books and whatever to read more and more on this stuff because it's pretty crazy some of the speculation I've read that I've seen out there. But yeah, so we went from the sun to the earth to flipping. I mean, I don't know.
It's no one knows, and here's, again, there's a beauty to science when done well, which is I assume I'm wrong. And I just want to ask the questions to be less wrong. And that, to me, is a thing that we should all endeavor to do more of. If you think you're right, you're wrong.
yeah, for sure.
All right. So, Hapa, we got about 40 minutes left. Let's call it. What is I think we can spend 40 minutes on the next three things. So what you been watching,
Hapa? Have I been watching some shows? So let me first start this by telling you how sad I am that I finished Slow Horses, this season of Slow Horses.
Oh man, don't you wish we could put spoilers on the podcast?
I know, because if you don't think you need a dirty British character that Gary Oldman plays in your life, you are completely wrong. Everybody needs that guy in your life. And probably everybody knows somebody like that in their life. Let's be honest. But Slow Horses, that we ended that series, and I was like, oh, I have to wait for the next season, which they're filming, I believe, right? I think they're filming another one.
They did announce that they are filming it. I think they waited till after the writer's strike, but yeah, they're definitely working on it.
I also read recently that the Foundation's newest season is getting underway for filming, so hopefully that'll be available soon. You also have Silo, which is supposed to be this summer, which, I mean, I can't wait for that.
Season 2 is supposed to come out this summer?
Supposed to release this summer. I think September is what they said.
Wait, Silo is very close, in my opinion, to the top of the shows that I've seen that were new. Like, that one was really good. Yeah, agreed.
It left this season at a perfect point where you're just like, I need to see more. It's
absolutely.
Those of you that have listened to the podcast, you heard me talk about a million times now that Apple TV, in my opinion, is well worth the $11 or whatever you pay for it, because the sci-fi alone is there. But anyway, Masters of the Air season just ended. If you haven't seen that show, I kind of questioned the validity, how much of that was real as I was watching it, and if they were just making stuff up to fill it. Turns out all of the characters almost were real. They've actually been seeing pictures of some of the actual people that are in the show out there, which is pretty immense. It's for anything, Band of Brothers level of fidelity and graphics on the fighting and everything is there. They do a great job of showing like how painful and scary the job of a B-17 crew was. There was a couple of times where Rita and I would watch it and I'd pause it because I'm a huge World War II nut. That's where I focused a lot of my studies on it when I used to teach history. And so there's times where I could tell her, on this specific raid, there was more lives lost than any other service during that time frame of the war, blah, 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 whatever. And they do it to a point where you almost you tear up because you're watching these characters that they did do a great job building up, and they're getting shot down and dying, and they do a great job with that.
Because that's how war works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And they show, just like in Band of Brothers, where you had replacements come in and nobody wanted to get close to them because so many people were dying. And just, it's a powerful show. It's well worth it. I would highly suggest everybody watch it. But the show that we just binged this last weekend is really what I want to focus on. It's called The Gentleman on Netflix.
Okay.
It is the first TV show that Guy Ritchie has ever done. And when I tell you that it is 100% a Guy Ritchie production, it is 100% a Guy Ritchie production. Have you haven't seen the movie The Gentleman, or have you? It's Matthew McConaughey and a bunch of other actors in there. I highly, highly recommend you go watch.
Are they related? The movie and the show related?
To me, it looks like the show is before the movie.
Okay.
So you might want to watch in that order. But the show is so like right on par with Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels, and all the other Guy Ritchie shows out there. And like I said, this is the first time he's done a show, and it's worth the watch. It's on Netflix. It's worth the binge. Great humor. A lot of moments.
Is it
where
one season?
Right now, yeah, just one season. And I don't even know if they're going to have another season, or I haven't read anything. But it seems like where you're watching and it's a calm scene, and then something crazy happens, and you're like, oh, I didn't even see that coming. That kind of show. Definitely love it. Well worth it.
I'll have to check that out. You're a Dune fan, right? Have you seen Dune Part 2 yet?
I haven't. No.
Oh. How can I make that happen for you?
I'm weird about going to movie theaters by myself.
Do I need to come out there?
I was gonna wait till it's a rental, honestly. I do not and cannot go to a movie theater by myself. It's just
here's what I would. Okay, I don't either. But here's what I would say about this one. I probably would for this one. Now, having seen it, I would.
Maybe I could try to catch a late show and nobody will be there. I'll have to deal with people.
It is. If you're a fan of Dune, I would love to get your take. I was talking to our buddy Steve Raptor about this, right? So he got to see it a little bit early, and he knew he was in town. We were having dinner, and we were talking about Dune. Yeah. And so he hits me up. He's like, "Oh my god!" And so it is. You've not read the books, correct?
I have. I read the books years ago.
Oh my! Yeah. Oh, you have to see it then. Yeah. So if you've read the books, so my family had not read the books.
Okay.
And I filled them in the first movie, and in the second movie, they were like, "What the hell?" There's like a few times I was like, "What the hell?" But there's some stuff done in this movie that is it's gorgeous, it's beautiful. Obviously, it's a Zimmer soundtrack. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's very well acted. The story is unbelievable, but the visuals it's just mind blowing. And they did make some changes from the books to the movie that I think they were going to have to make anyway. I think some of the things in the book just would not would not be available to be on screen and have a movie nowadays. But also, there were some changes that just need to be made, and they made them. I think they did a good job with them. So it's there was only 2 movies planned, and I think there is a third one available, right, which would be Dune Messiah. And I'm really curious after seeing. I mean, Dune is basically saving the box office this year.
Yeah.
And so now I'm curious, will they go and make that third one? Because
that's a Villanueva
love to see the third one
movie.
Yeah.
He said that he is 100% open to doing a third one.
So the third one would be the last of the material I think you should shoot. It would be Dune Messiah. It would be the book that they'd be doing.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, yeah. So if you get a chance, go see that. So I'm going to check out The Gentleman. That's on Netflix. I need to check out a couple of shows that you sent me, but I'll make sure that's on my list because that sounds really good to me.
Yeah, there's been movies that have come out that I'm like, I know I need to go watch the theater, but I legitimately just can't stand going to a movie theater by myself.
It was easier for me to get to. I mean, maybe I just need to book the flight and go.
I'll just need to move out here. I don't know.
Grab the. Well, that road works both ways.
Oh! Is that true? Is that? I guess it's true.
Yeah, that is both directions. I-20 drives both directions. Believe it or not.
Allegedly.
Is it 20 or 59? Which one would you end up on? What are you closer to?
I can't remember which one it is that goes up and over. I looked at actually, to be clear, I like the drive straight to Houston, Beaumont, and then up the coast. Like, I like that one.
Okay. Oh, so you like to go down the coast and then up?
Yeah, but I know that is a significantly longer drive than if I go
it's such
north
a pretty
and
drive,
over.
though.
It is. It really is. That's
the
why I love it.
North and over is just pine trees.
Yeah, and it's the north part of Texas. It's like 10 hours of nothingness. You're just driving through flat ground, like.
Yep. Yeah, and then then it's pine forest all the way here.
Yeah.
Yeah, the coast is actually a really cool drive. Some cool cities along that coast.
I love it. That's one thing I actually miss about Southeast Texas was just driving up or down the coast, depending on where I went. That's such a beautiful.
Yeah, the Gulf
drive.
Coast, man. For my money, the Gulf Coast is as beautiful of a coast as you'll ever find.
Yeah, hands down.
Love the Gulf Coast.
So what are we listening to, man? What are you listening to lately?
So, you and I were talking a little bit earlier, and I tend to throw my playlists your way as they come up. And last Friday, I will say, here are the albums that were included on my playlist from last Friday. It was Kim Gordon, which most people don't know Kim Gordon. Yeah. Kim Gordon was the bass player for Sonic Youth. And so I included the Kim Gordon album. Sonic Youth. If Sonic Youth was weird, this Kim Gordon album is going to be even weirder for you. Yeah, it's a lot of.
You're not. We got to work on your sales tactics here.
I'm not selling that album. It's cool, but it's cool from a technical standpoint, right? It's a lot of noise work and stuff like that. But there is a Judas Priest album. Yes, Judas Priest. There's a Judas Priest album called Invincible Shield, and they came out last Friday, and this was what I gotta look this up. 19th, I think. Let me see. Invincible Shield. This is 19th album, I think it is. Invincible Shield is the 19th studio album by English heavy metal band Judas Priest. So 19 albums these guys have put out together. That's amazing. How old?
Yeah, I was about to ask you, how long have they been around?
1969.
Holy shit. Well, actually, okay, to be fair, there are a lot of great bands that have been going since the 60s that are still going.
And we ain't got nobody better.
How crazy is it, though, that you've got bands, Kiss and Aerosmith and... I mean, hell, Led Zeppelin is still like holy crap, right? Like all these bands for 60 years, over 60 years at this point for a lot of them. I bet a lot of them are rolling at 70 years.
I mean, Ian Hill who's the bass player and one of the original members of Judas Priest. He's 72 years old.
Yeah, some of these guys, they gotta be getting up there, right?
72. In another 15 years, he'll be eligible to run for president of the United States of America.
Some may say overqualified.
Yeah, right? But this, and no kidding. So all that to lead into this album is fantastic.
That's awesome.
Like top to bottom, I was blown away by how good this album is. So if you're a fan of metal, if you're a fan of Judas Priest, new album came out Friday, Invincible Shield. You need to go check it out. Also, kind of ran into an act, Maggie Lindemann, who had gotten popular through the internet, which I'm not. I'm usually not sold on people who got popular through YouTube, right? But that's becoming a new way that you'll be like, okay, these people have become popular through this way.
I have some of her music on my playlist, actually. That's why.
Yeah, right. And she had an album called Head Split that came out Friday, and it's really good. It is really good. In particular, there's a song called Deprecating with Sick Brain that I thought was really well done. But you have to kind of like some of the screamo stuff that goes on in it. But yeah, I would say that for me, I've been listening for. I need to look at the ones. Yeah, okay, so it's been 4 weeks. I'm looking back through all the albums I've listened to.
Just so everybody knows, we went through a period again where Seven was like, "Are we doing the podcast?" Sure. Hey, I can't do the podcast. Okay, cool. We'll do it Thursday. Okay. Hey, I can't do it Thursday.
But the last time I did tell you about Saint Chaos and Amigo the Devil, right? So at least we're up to speed. Judas Priest is who I would recommend if you're looking for some
look that album up. That sounds good.
Yeah, you should check it out. It is really good. So yeah, that's what I've been that's what I've been listening to. It's been a lot of fun to do that. We have a new playlist coming out tomorrow. Those get published somewhere. They get published on my Discord. Maybe I should start putting them on Twitter. If anyone on the podcast is kind of curious about hearing those, that could be good.
I wonder if we should build a website. Anyway, that's a sidebar. Sorry.
I am
a little,
so here for that.
A little fluorescent light bulb flickered on above my head there. Sorry if you're listening. Yeah. We'll talk about that offline.
Yeah, maybe we should do that. All right, Hapa, what you playing, man?
Oh my gosh, it's so true when I say fluorescent light bulb flicker. Anyway,
and I know I can actually visualize. Ding, 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 ding.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. I have been freaking hooked.
You have to tap them.
Flick it every now and then. It'll come on. Yeah. The ends just stay lit. That's all you get. It's a very weird game. I have been incredibly hooked on Helldivers 2. But I literally only play when my brother is on and wanting to play, or Rita is on and around to play, or both of them. Because just like most games, you guys will probably hear me talk about it a lot of times, I get bored playing games like that by myself.
Because you're a very social gamer anyway.
Yes, yeah. And that game is literally designed around a group of 4 people doing missions together, working together. Like, the game is coded, so if you go off on your own, sometimes you'll get yourself in trouble and things like that. And the comedic value of the, like Starship Trooper level news reports, the comedic value of accidentally killing each other with different weapons, and, just... It is a very, very, very incredibly fun game. And if you've been living under a rock and this is the first time you're hearing about Helldivers 2, I highly doubt it, because it's plastered all over social media. It's plastered all over YouTube, Twitch, everywhere. It is a fun game. And it's we've talked about 2 games that neither game thought they would do well, right? That BattleBit was the one that we talked about months ago. And this is another one that the game devs literally did not expect the game to take off as much as it did, to the point where the first month, I think, month and a half that the game was live, their servers were constantly locked up. Like, they'd peg max and people couldn't even play the game. They've overcome that, and they've continued to grow from it. But that game is in crazy game. It's a live service game. They literally have a game master that sits there and looks at what the players are doing and throws wrenches in. Like, you're running around on a planet and they think that everybody's surviving through an operation too good. He'll put in a meteor shower just randomly in the middle of your battle. Like,
that.
It's actually one person. His job is to just screw with the community. So he'll sometimes give everybody a type of consumable, or he'll increase the spawn rates of this enemy all of a sudden, or he'll, all these things. It really is a fresh take for me on, like, the shooter genre. Like, how the game is structured is amazing. And I think if you dug into it, did some reading, I think you'd be blown away with what they've done.
Yeah, no, it was interesting because I was reading something. It was the Warner Brothers CEO talking about, WB Games, which is probably 6% of Warner Brothers, right? Total consideration of ownership. But you're talking about live service games, and it was really interesting because Helldivers 2 was used as the example for a true live service game, built from the ground up to be a live service game, and it was an example given not by this Warner Brothers CEO, by commentary I was watching about the comments. This was a shareholders meeting, and so he was more speaking to shareholders. But the commentary talking about Warner Brothers games, it was specifically talking about Hogwarts Legacy and Suicide Squad. Right? Those are the two on the plate. I want to come back to that. But the interesting thing was they were using Helldivers 2 as the example of a live service game built to be a live service game, run like a live service game in a way that is good.
Yeah.
Because not all live service games, live service, you said live service. I think that's become just a word or a term that we know when we use, right? It's lots of live service games, so it's become a way that games operate. And a lot of people think that model is attractive, but you have to do it well for that model to work. And Helldivers 2 was used as we're doing it well, or they're doing it well kind of model. So I'm glad to hear that. I may pick it up. I've been waiting. I haven't picked it up. I haven't picked
It's
it up on
hilarious.
purpose. It seemed like a flash kind of game, some of those games that kind of come and go, but it seems to be hanging on and people seem to be loving it.
Well, I will say this. They've been constantly releasing new content, weapons, changes to the game, whatever, since it's launched. When did Helldivers 2 launch? Like a couple months ago, right?
Yeah, it was recent.
Helldivers 2 launch date was February 8th, so it's only been a month. But in a month, they've already hit their max that they could allow on the servers, increased servers available, added new weapons, added new skins. They've already been making changes and tweaks to various guns. Like, my worry about this is that the studio, which by the way has straight up asked the community what they can do as a company to improve the game because they want the community's input. Crazy idea. Yeah, crazy.
They want their customers to enjoy the game?
It's crazy. For a live service game to actually want their player base to enjoy it. But my concern, though, is they've gone so hard in this first month that it will get to a point where you're going to be like, well, we don't know what else to do here. Like, they are doing such a good job right now that for me, it's hard to believe that 1 year from now, I'm still going to be playing Helldivers 2.
Did they continue to do that? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a game that came out recently called Last Epoch, and I'm a fan of that game. And happen to know someone on the development team there who works in the back-end systems, and I know a bit about what preparations went into, making it so that game would launch and hold up under load. And what I will tell you is it didn't, right? And it hasn't. And it outpaced Diablo 4, right? It had more concurrent players than Diablo 4. It's in the ARPG realm. More concurrent players than Diablo 4, Path of Exile, like these games are kind of monsters in that realm. They kind of flew by them pretty quick.
Right.
And I have begun to wonder if there is a such thing as a data service provider, a hosting service provider, a data center provider, however you want to set your games up that can support a game of that level of popularity, because they all run into it. And that doesn't matter if you're Blizzard and you have, unlimited money and access to experience and whatever else. You still launch and your servers don't hold up, right? It seems to be the way it works.
It's almost a norm now, right? Like, that's just...
It is, and so increasingly what separates good games from bad ones is how they handle that, right? It's almost as if you're going to have issues, and then your company shows really quickly as to whether you were ready for that or not, and there's kind of no way to hide it if you're a bunch of jerks.
Yeah.
If you're someone
which is the norm also for a lot of these companies.
Which is also the norm, right? But if you're someone who really cares about your community and really cares about the game and the art of creating it and the experience of creating it and the experience that it's creating for others, that comes through pretty quick. And I've actually been taking notes from the Last Epoch team and how they've been responding to community issues, because they've been addressing them so well, right? They've been very metered. When there's balance issues, they address them as bug fixes, which I think is really interesting. It's
nice to hear that.
Right? They're like, no, this is a bug fix. We're willing to put it in with a hot fix today.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not like, oh, well, it's a balance issue. We'll wait until our 6 month
the next patch
window.
cycle or whatever.
Yeah. No. We're addressing it because y'all care about it. And what was interesting with Last Epoch is they made a game design decision early on, and the design decision was make an offline mode. And what's fascinating to me with live service games is that doesn't exist, right? But for a live service game to do what a live service game wants to do, to make money, online is 100% necessary. And so the fact that someone at some point said, you know what if we just had an offline mode? Because really, this is just as rewarding as a single player experience, and it can completely function offline.
Yeah.
And they put it in, and so when the servers didn't hold up, what happened? All your streamers were like, oh, go to offline mode, I don't care. And the game just kept growing.
Perfect. Yeah.
But if you're and this is where I wanted to come back to the Warner Brothers conversation. The conversation that they were having about games is they consider Suicide Squad killed the Justice League, right? right? If you haven't, I loved that game. I enjoyed it. It was worth the original price. It's worth the price now.
Yeah.
Just for the content that we played together in it. I have not laughed so hard playing video games.
Totally agree.
A long time. It was a lot of fun. But Warner Brothers considers that game a failure. It got panned for a lot of reasons. People didn't love it for a lot of reasons. A lot of people were like, "Hey, this is not canon." Well, no shit, it's not canon. There's literally a quest called "It's Not Canon," right?
Yeah,
Like kill the Justice League? No, we are very aware that's not
right.
That's not canon, guys. But some people got really upset. They didn't like it, but it was a live service game, only in as much that it had live service attachments. Okay, so that was what the Warner Brothers people were bringing up. Like, it wasn't built from the ground up to be a live service game. It was actually just a game, a co-op game, shooter looter, that had live service features. And then they pointed to Hogwarts Legacy.
Yeah.
Okay, which is not a live service game in any way, shape, or form, and was also one of the biggest games ever created. Meaning, that's probably the best game Warner Brothers Studios has ever created.
For sure.
Hogwarts Legacy is a huge triumph, and they said, we don't want any more of this.
Which, somebody somewhere just looked at live service game. Okay, whatever game they look at, how much money do we make for the life of that game? X amount of dollars, and we're still making money. Okay, cool. So over the course of 6 years, whatever, this is the total we made. Hogwarts Legacy, one of the best-selling, games recently released that doesn't need live service, isn't live service. How much do we make? We had a burst that equaled 60% of what we made in the 6 years. Okay, so that's a failure to me. I need a game that's going to give me as much as that game made for 6 years, but I needed to do it initial sales and then make me more in the long run.
Yes, and that was actually that exact logic is what the Warner Brothers folks were using in saying that, Hogwarts Legacy was a hit, but it's unpredictable and it's kind of a burst of money, and we don't want to do that. And what they're saying, I am not hating on live service games. I'm not. For some games, live service games are exactly what you want.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, there's also a game that's just an amazing interactive story with great game mechanics that you want to play through. And Hogwarts Legacy, as an example, my wife and my daughter both play it. How many video games are there in the world that my wife and daughter play? I will tell you there are zero. But they both play Hogwarts Legacy.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to watch how this plays out. And Helldivers 2 being the example, it's funny that you brought it up. I had not planned to talk about all this, but like Helldivers 2 as a live service game, when you if you start from the ground up and you're like, we're going to build a live service game and we're going to do it the right way, you can make some really compelling games.
Yeah.
I don't trust Warner Brothers to do that.
Well, yeah, and I think that's the difference too. You're having, like, you just gave an example of another small studio that released Last Epoch and had some very intelligent thought process in the production of their game, and it's working for them, and honestly should be a model. And then you've got another company which produced Helldivers 2, which is also a very small company.
Yep.
That had very small company thought processes. Everything's in-house. I mean, like I said, they have one guy, Joel, who's the game master. They literally call him the game master, that makes these changes in the live service, right? Not a team, not a group, one guy.
Just Joel, good old Joel.
And the community managers for Helldivers, it pretty much is the CEO. Like, the CEO is literally answering people on social media. Like, and handling it very eloquently and correctly, by the way. A lot of those. And then you've got giant companies. How giant companies are going to look at gaming. I think that is the problem we're running into here, is the I have to make so much money that I possibly can. I don't even give a crap if it's a good quality game. If I can do a media blitz to get people to buy it and they don't ever play it, I don't even care, right? Like, who cares?
I guess for me as a musician, right, spent a lot of years playing music. As a gamer, I love games. Some things should not be commoditized.
Yeah.
To me, some things should not be turned into a commodity. And I don't care if you got your MBA. I really don't. I happen to be, speaking from a place of privilege here, I happen to be not impressed with people who got their MBA. Sorry.
Right, yeah.
So it doesn't impress me that you have a baseline understanding of economics. I'm not really that impressed with macroeconomic understanding when you're using it to ruin someone's art.
Exactly.
So some things should not be commoditized. Music, the commoditization of music led to
I would go so far as saying entertainment. I think entertainment should not be commoditized.
I think movies. It's interesting. Movies found a balance in there somewhere,
Yeah.
and we've wavered on that.
Yeah.
And I think the people responded recently very strongly because you had movies every year. Some of them were obviously a commoditized, put it out, formulaic, whatever.
Yeah.
And then there were some that were just for the vision, right? For the art, for the story. And now shows have become that way too. And what's interesting with movies is the superhero tropes got overdone. And I think, people are kind of responding to saying, hey, like, I don't care. I'm not going to go see Madam Web.
Yeah, we're burnt out with it, right? Like,
right. It's just not compelling. And it's not because we hate superheroes, as that ain't true, because The Boys is doing just fine. The thing is, and I also promise you Deadpool will do just fine.
Yep.
But it's just not compelling because you got a bunch of people in there saying, we're making a business decision to have a movie, not an art decision.
Right. Yeah.
And I would love for that to be applied to video games, right? And it seems like at least with Steam, I think Steam is like a huge win. Here, Gabe, reach out if you want to talk. Love to say hey. But Steam enables these independent game companies to have a place to put their game where they can get some publicity and they can get downloads and online tools and a lot of the stuff that does stand up to some of the bigger games. And so you have these tools, and what game company was it that was Microsoft, I think, that was talking about they were completely caught off guard by the fact that developers don't need them. Right. So when they got the Xbox, you got the PlayStation, they're like, oh, people will have to come to us to distribute their games. No, same with Steam.
Yep.
Yeah. So I hope that we continue to see support for. I'm a big fan of Larian Studios with Baldur's Gate 3. I love the BattleBit stuff. I love stuff like Helldivers 2. I love seeing these sorts of things. And honestly, I will support a big studio when they do things like Hogwarts Legacy. I will support that. I don't care where it comes from. I really don't. I just don't want the business of it to ruin the art of it.
For sure. And I would argue to say that a lot of people are starting to have that same thought in general. And again, I'm saying going back to entertainment because like you said, like a lot of these movies, some of the one-off movies that have been hits, like who would have thought for a second that, Barbie and freaking, what was the other movie that everybody was?
Oppenheimer.
Yeah, Oppenheimer and Barbie, like, everyone was going to be like, of course Oppenheimer would be an amazing movie, and then Barbie was like neck to neck with it for the longest time, right? Like, and it literally just, I think, boils down to the fact that it's like these big companies are blind to the fact that, they're producing a lot of the same, flux over and over and over and over and over, and people are starting to wake up to it, I think. So hopefully things like that, games like that will keep being produced, because I'm all for it. I am all for small studio success for sure over these big companies. Anyway.
Yep. I will support a small studio sight unseen a lot of times, where I'll go buy a game, and then if there's a big studio that's like, oh, this is a AAA game. Look, for anyone who's listening, do you know what it means when you say a AAA game? That's how much they spent developing it and nothing else.
Yeah.
That is the only indication of AAA. So when you say a AAA game, it's someone saying, we spent $150 million developing this. I don't care.
Yep. It can still be a pile
irrelevant.
of poop. Like,
right. Stardew Valley was a dude sitting in a broken chair at his mom's kitchen table. So don't yell at me about how much you spent developing. That's not a badge of honor to me. Is it a good game or is it not? And so I'll actually go buy an independent game pretty quickly, and I'll look at the big studios a little harder, right? I'll wait on some of the bigger studios. With, Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, I went right in on that one because it was so much fun. We played the alpha together.
Yeah, we had the alpha, and it was an insane amount of fun, just the alphas we knew. But
just the alphas.
Like, a perfect example of what you're saying is Diablo 4. Like, Diablo 4, 100%. They spent
100%.
millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to develop Diablo 4, do all the marketing, all these, huge publicity stunts, and it fell flat. Like, the game is just boring. It is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful game. It had so much potential, and they just didn't. If they took all those millions and they focused it on content instead of putting a statue in LA or San Francisco or whatever, as a marketing thing, they probably would have had a better product and more success. And, because here we are now, not even a year after Diablo got released, and I'm willing to believe there aren't a whole lot of people playing it or talking about it in general.
And Last Epoch ate its lunch.
Right. So
50 people in the company.
Crazy, right? It's crazy that you got people doing that. Yeah.
Yep. All right. That went a little bit further than I thought it was going to go.
Yeah, it's fine. It's a good topic.
I'm here for it, man. I'm here for it. We can talk about video games. I have learned that.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Hapa. So I'm imagining you're keeping on your rules. You have an idea of where we are on that list. And for anyone who needs catching up on this, go back through our podcasts. And at the end of each of them, Hapa had some Hapa's rules for living. And these were rules, Hapa, correct me if I'm wrong, but these are rules you picked up along the way and wrote down. So unlike most people who just kind of hear something cool and like, oh, that's cool, and then they move on, you wrote it down. And so we made it through that list where you kind of took them at face value, you said the thing, and we went on. And now we've started that list back over, and because I asked you to, let's start that list back over, and you tell me where some of these came from.
Sure.
And talk about your thoughts on some of them. So what is behind the scenes on the Hapa's rules for living this podcast?
So we went through rules 1 through 5 last week, and we're going to go through 6 through probably 12 because there's a couple that are tied in together. And a lot of these, by the way, are not rules that I made for my life because of some prolific, aha moment. A lot of these were just things you learn over time, right? So like rule 6 and 7, never cheat, never lie. That was something that was just always instilled on me growing up. Yeah, that's two separate rules. Yeah, never cheat, and then never lie. But they kind of go hand in hand, right? Because like typically if you do one, you're going to do the other. And just in general, I've always been one of those people that I've been told by friends, and I've always tried to be the way, like if you want an answer, you may not like the answer, but you can go to Hapa, you can ask the question, and he'll give you the answer. And a lot of times with my friends, through life, when they've asked me a question, a lot of times my response is, do you want the answer you want to hear, or do you want the answer that I'm going to tell you? Like, because I need to be clear there, because I've also pissed off a lot of people that I called friends to the point where sometimes they never talk to me again. And it was never something I was being malicious about. It was just sometimes honesty hurts, right? Like,
I think this is one of the things you and I bonded over very early in our relationship. And you and I have talked about that. I am similar, right? I very rarely will give an unsolicited opinion. When people come to me and they're like, oh, this is going on. Oh, I hate that for you, right? And I will do that. And then they will say, well, what do you think about that? When I hang on.
Yeah. Because you got to preface it.
We're potentially about to cross a bridge here. I am right now just being a supportive friend. And I am happy as I can be to be supportive. But this is your point of no return, right? And if you want my real opinion on this, I will give you my real opinion. Now, having said all that, you now know that my opinion probably going to piss you off.
Yep.
So, and it's been always fascinating to me. But I have this saying, I respect you too much to bullshit you.
Yeah.
If anybody's saying things to save your feelings, it's not because they love you.
I will tell you, some of my closest friendships were when I've met somebody that can take that blunt honesty as well. Like, if you can take it for what it is, not malicious, like it's truthful and it's honesty, and you can actually take it on board, typically we're going to be fine. Because life's too short for me to say, no, that dress looks great on you, honey, and it doesn't. Like, like.
Oh, my wife is like, Mel's like, you need to tell me.
I can totally see her being like, no, really, I need you to be honest here. Like,
oh yeah. Well, she know, and I will be, right? And she's like, you gotta tell me. Yeah, it is a thing, and I do appreciate that. So don't cheat, don't lie.
Yep. The next one is be prideful, but in a humble way, and that sounds obviously they're interacting against each other, but I have always been the type of person that I've always said I'm not prideful. Like I'm not like I am amazing at this or I'm good at this but there are things that, I typically will say, like, if I'm good at something, I know I'm good at something. And I'll tell you I know I'm good at something. I'm not the best, but, like cooking, I can tell you I know how to cook. I'm a damn good cook. But I'm not freaking, a Michelin chef or nothing like that because I've never been trained. And I think that humility can get you so far in this world. That I used to tell sailors that all the time. You could be the dumbest box of rocks on board the ship. You could be the dullest nail, just not a single brain cell firing between your two ears, right? But if you're humble about it, I don't know. Could you help me or teach me? Being humble enough to do that, you can outshine anybody that's intelligent. Hands down, you can outshine. And
yeah,
that goes for everything. Yeah, and it really is.
Pride's a rough one. And you said something interesting here. If you don't mind, I hope you don't mind that I'm voicing.
No, I don't mind at all.
But like, you said something interesting about when you're good at something, you can, you talk about it. This actually goes with kind of the first part where we talked about being honest with people. One of the things I have to take people aside very often and do is tell them what they're great at. And here's what I've found. If you're good at something, you probably know it. If you're great at something, you probably don't. And here's why. When you're great at something, it's probably because you had a natural propensity for it, that you got so good at it that you assumed other people would think it's easy as well. So to be great at something, it's easy for you because you found something that matches who you are. And those moments of honesty, oftentimes people don't know how to take them. When you take them aside and be like, here's your actual superpower. I know you think this is it, right? And I know you're working really hard here, but that's not it. Here's the actual thing. And watching people at the very next moment, you have to say, now do not let that get to your head, right?
Yeah.
Like, I want you to take pride in your work, but I don't want you to be prideful, right? That's a very thin line for some people.
Yeah.
Very thin line.
And I'll tell you, as a leader coming up in the Navy, that was a conversation I used to have regularly because you'd have sailors that you were mentoring that would be good at whatever. And it's the same thing. Like, I don't want you to let this go to your head, but, you're doing a good job. You're doing great. You're great at this. You're great at that, But I don't think I ever told a sailor. I don't think I did. I might have, but I don't think I did. I don't think I ever told a sailor you are the best at whatever. I don't think I ever said that because, I hate when I say that, but like, the kids in the Navy, you say you're the best at something, it's gonna go to their head, right? That's just because they're a kid. They're, that's experiencing
really
life.
I have seen people. It's been so fascinating since I started doing that about 10 years ago. And I'll take somebody aside and I'll be like, we're going to have an honest conversation today. Are you prepared for that? Do you have the bandwidth for an honest conversation? I will tell you it's a positive one in my view. And the reason I have to say it that way is when I've been like, I know you think you're good at this and I agree with you. I know you think you're good at this and I agree with you. I know you think you're good at this and I agree with you. I just don't think any of it matters.
Right.
Because those are the things they're working so hard at. And the thing you're great at is over here.
Yeah.
And the reason you're trying to be good at that is because you're great at this. And if you would focus on your greatness, right, I'll find somebody who does these things great too. And that's how you make a great team, right? It's like you go put the people together. And what's been interesting to me is watch it wreck people. Where they deconstruct, it almost becomes an existential issue every single time in the moment where they're like, I didn't know that about me. And I was like, I know.
Well, that's why we're having this talk.
Right. I know. There's an interesting thing about humans that you can never know what the room is like when you're not in it.
Yep.
Right. As a human being, I would have to tell you what the room was like when you weren't there, because when you were there, you're there.
Yep.
So you never know what you bring to the room. If the room lights up when you walk in, you don't know that. And it was a really interesting thing for me to have that realization. There were people I used to work with, or people I do work with now, who would walk into a room and everyone, their mood goes up. right? They all get more productive. Those people, and they don't know they're doing it, right? But they just walked in a room, and as far as they're concerned, every room they walk into is full of happy, productive people.
Oh, if it only the way.
If only. And I was like, no, I need you in the room. Why?
Yeah.
Okay, look,
Just listen to me.
Here's something you don't know about you.
Right.
My God, you're going to be in that room. Okay, I've interrupted your rules enough. Let's keep going.
No, that's fine. I totally love it, man. I love it. The next two are one of them's pretty self-explanatory. I say, "I love you" is not a line that should ever be easily given out. Everybody's had heartache in their life. Everybody's been there. It's funny to me that we talked on it briefly about how relationships realistically are kind of disposable nowadays, and I am guilty of that too myself. Don't get me wrong. Like the way I look at relationships, it's like, well, if I have. It is my own fault. It's like got to a point where I've been like, all right, this criteria is needing to be met, and if it's not, then all right, well, I'll go find another one. It's the way it is. And then for obvious reasons too, when people don't turn out who you see them as, that could be pretty devastating to you as well. And then the last one's travel outside your town. You'd be amazed at what and who you might find. This one, to me, I think wouldn't be a thought to me if I hadn't been in the Navy and seen the world. It sincerely blows me away that there are people in this country that think they understand people in the Middle East or understand people in Asia or understand people in Europe. And the other way is also true. People in Europe think they understand Americans or Asia, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because everyone is quick to talk about, well, they just need to do this. Or you can't say that because you don't know anything about, people have talked about how, well, they should get rid of all the monarchies because there's no reason for them. Well, I've never lived under a monarchy, and hate to tell you, but a lot of European countries that are under a monarchy seem to be pretty damn happy with their monarchies. So to me, it's like, whatever, I don't care. We don't have one, or our political system or medical system or food, whatever the case would be. Well, if you haven't lived there, you haven't visited there, you haven't talked to those people, you really, in my opinion, honestly and bluntly, you should just shut up. You should never let your opinion be had because you shouldn't have one, And I find that people that haven't traveled typically are the most vocal about other places, and they don't necessarily have that understanding. And I tell people all the time, it's like, without touching on politics and what have you, I don't have any footing to be talking about what another nation should be doing for their better good. Like, that's not appropriate, and then beyond that, you never know. You might like Italians, or you might like Middle Easterns, or you might like Asians, you might like whatever, and you don't even know it just because you've never been there. You never talked to those people before. So that's a huge one for me. I wish more people would travel in general. I feel like America is probably more of a thing for Americans than probably Europeans and people outside the U.S. because I feel like traveling is fairly normal for every other part of the world except for America, But
yeah, I think that it's interesting because you're calling out a lot there. I love it, and it's talking about. It's not just traveling, but it's being open and empathetic when you do.
For sure, yeah.
And there's plenty of people who would travel and be like, I'm an American, you son of a bitch, and they would just try to make that kind of the thing. And that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about, no, go outside your comfort zone, go to people you don't understand, and be open to their experiences. And I think that you could actually extrapolate that out. I'm a kid from Birmingham, Alabama, right? Like,
right. I mean, I had perfect examples. I went to Lisbon, Portugal, and there was a girl that was with our party, and she was mad that the Portuguese didn't speak English. I'm like, what? Like, you're in their country.
Did they indeed speak Portuguese in Portugal?
Oh, yes. In fact, Portuguese was, in fact, the language.
Yeah, I am sorry that caught you off guard.
That was the first time in my entire life where I was legitimately like blown away at the
Yeah.
ignorance of an American.
Well,
Like,
and
what?
that's why I was saying I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. And so what's interesting here, you've heard me say this, there's a reason I'm in Birmingham. I've chosen to be here my whole
Yeah,
life. This is
yeah.
the arena. You know, and if you don't know the quote about the arena, right, it's the people in the arena that matter, not the people in the cheap seats who are criticizing.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so if you want to see what it looks like to live in a diverse world and have hard conversations, this is a great place to come do it. And I think that's something that we kind of, haven't owned as certainly as a state, because our state doesn't want to own it, but as a city, when we talk about, like, you don't know what that other person's experience is. You don't have any, you can't say what's right, wrong, or indifferent for them. All you can do is support them in being the best them they can be. That's really the only thing you can do. And if you earn their trust enough and you learn who they are, that they come to you and they say, hey, I would actually love your feedback on how this is going to go and how I should approach this. If you do that, that is when there's a connection made that's a whole nother level of humanity. But you have to earn that. And what we've lost as a society is people don't earn that anymore, and they believe that they should be able to tell everyone else how they should live and what they should do and how they should act. We believe we should legislate morality. Like, there's a lot of crap.
God, yeah, that's a huge one, yeah.
Right? Like, there's a lot of stuff, and it's like, hang on just a second, y'all. I don't need you in my business, right? And you don't know who I am, and you're trying to tell me who I am, and I tell you, it's fascinating to watch. I do think, I will say this, in kind of closing, I guess we're now over time, but I'll say kind of in closing here, the world works a lot better when people slow down and try to care about each other rather than criticize each other.
I mean, that's immense. There's been so many philosophers and leaders that are gone, unfortunately. They used to say that, like, you need to treat every single human as if they're another human. You don't know better. They don't know better. You're both trying to live their, day to day, trying to get by, trying to put food in your mouth and clothes on your back and roof over your head, and how you do that may be a little different than the guy next to you, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're better or they're better or whatever the case may be, right? And that goes all the way back to the be a better human, that you'll hear me and Seven talk about all the time. Like, there is nothing better. Like, and if you go to a foreign country and you ask somebody that's a local questions and you want to know where they go eat or what they like to do or what they would like me to see, you'd be amazed at how their faces will light up, and they will gladly point you to their favorite spots, which honestly a lot of times is the best places to go.
Oh yeah.
Hands
well,
down.
if it's not the best place, you'll get the best experience.
You will, yeah.
There was a place here in town called Gibbs Place, and I hate that it's not here anymore, because I would have loved for you to have traveled out. It was one of the last remaining juke joints. It may have been the last actual juke joint. It was in a guy's backyard. And Gip was 103 or something like that when he finally died. And the city had continued to let him have it because he was grandfathered in. And it's those sorts of things that you will only find one way. And that way is being open to other human experiences. And so, yeah, I love this. When we went through these rules the first time, there was a bunch of them. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to talk more about that. So I'm glad we're
well,
doing
that's
this.
why I wanted to go over these, because I a lot of my rules also I know people just live by without even saying it, right? I just happen to put them on paper or whatever.
Yeah, but they're good reminders. It's good to
yeah.
Cool.
2 hours, man.
Yeah. 2 hours and 2 minutes, 11 seconds and counting.
So in theory, if you're listening, we should have another podcast in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now-ish. So what is that, the 26th of March, I believe?
Yeah, the
Something
26th
like
should be our next, 26th of March. Tuesday evening, the 26th.
As always, though, if life gets in the way, it just won't happen. So that's why it's important that you maybe hit the little notification buttons or whatever. We do upload all of these. They go to Spotify usually within about 24, 48 hours for those of you listening. So it may be for the 28th for you guys, perhaps 27th, depending. But yeah, I love that we're continuing to do this, and I love that we're actually at a point now where we are at we joke all the time because Seven has a very busy life, so sometimes we got to kick it to Thursday or whatever. And usually for me, it's usually my chronic pain or something. I'm just not in the right headspace to do a podcast or whatever. We'll kick it to the next day or whatever. But I don't. So far, I think so far we've done one a month. I think January we did 2.
Yeah, we did 2 in January. We did 2 in February.
Did we do 2 in February?
No, we did 1 in February. Yeah.
So I mean, we're trying to keep the numbers up. Hopefully, when Uncle Joe finally decides to sponsor us.
Keep waiting on that phone call.
I'm telling you.
Brita Filters and Joe Rogan. I mean, I'm waiting for both those phone calls.
Oh man, how awesome! I would do that the 20s announcer voice, man. The 20s announcer.
Brought to
voice.
you by Brita Filters.
I'm just saying. See, it'd be amazing. But as always, we appreciate you guys listening to us or watching us, on YouTube, whatever the case be. All the support you guys give us. Where can you be reached, Mr. Seven?
I can be reached on Twitter, right? I'm on the Twitter X's Twitter, whatever they
this week
call it. We were laughing earlier because if you go to x.com, it actually redirects to twitter.com. So
I was like, why does that make any sense? I don't understand.
Yeah, but it's S3VYN, and yes, it was the mid '90s, and we wrote things like that at times, and I've just kept it. So yes, you can find me there. You can find me on Twitch here and there. You can always find me at VII.tv if you want to find the website. And email addresses and stuff are there. So yeah, you can find me in all those places. And you can also find me on YouTube, where my wife and I, Mel, we do every Saturday night, we play a story game and we live stream it, and then we put the videos on YouTube. And those have been some of the more entertaining
They've been fantastic, man.
Live streaming that I've had.
Yeah.
She's a blast. She's not a gamer, so it's a lot of fun to watch her play through games like The Expanse and stuff like that. It's been a lot of fun. So you can find me on YouTube, Twitter, X. You can find me on Twitch. And you can find me here. So what about you, Hapa? Where can people find you?
Pretty much, if you Google Hapa_fodder, that's me. Pretty much. I don't know of. I'm not cool enough to have any imposters just yet, so I've been able to grab everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter X, and here on YouTube as well. If you pretty much Google it, I'm there, and that's pretty easy. Reason we ask about where you can get a hold of us is because we would love to hear from you guys. We've talked about it a few times the last couple of months. Getting topics for the podcast is getting a little rough.
The news sites aren't news sites anymore.
Yeah, we're trying to stay away from a lot of the nastiness going on in the world. That's another reason he and I wanted to kind of do this podcast, was to try to give a little avenue of fun, something out there in the world, so you don't have to deal with politics or whatever the case would be. And then this year, with the election year, of course, it's a lot of politics, so we're trying to stay away from a lot of it. But if you give us topics, I have had a couple people that have just thrown out ideas, and I appreciate your ideas so much. But give me an article, something to read, something to go off of, because Seven and I, 100%, we can talk for hours on our opinions, but at the end of the day, that's all it is. So I would like to see some kind of information article, something to read, and that would be greatly appreciated. You can shoot that to us, email or message us, whatever the case may be. So, but yeah, that's it, man. We're done. Hope you guys take care of yourselves. Another one in the can, huh? Another one down, man. March. So hopefully we'll shoot for 2. Appreciate y'all. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your week and a great rest of your evening. And thank you so much for all the support, honestly, that we've gotten. I love looking at the analytics and seeing where in the world we're being listened to. It's fantastic.
I think that's pretty cool. So
yeah,
we should call out we should have a town ready to call out at the beginning of every podcast. Someone's listening to
Jamaica.
Oh. Well, we thought Jamaica every podcast, but I think we should.
We
should have a different town that someone's listening to and be like, "Hey, coming to you."
We could definitely do that.
Portsmouth.
Sure. Hey. Anyways, folks, hope you guys have a great evening, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Good night, everybody.